Okay, I've never met her. I don't know who she is. Therefore, I'm not going to do this. Here, take this. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay? Because I'm a skeptic. I don't know who she is. But guess what? Because I have met him. I've talked with him. The evidence is I can trust him. So what am I? I'm a skeptic. I don't know her. I don't know if I gave her my wallet, if she'd turn around and run out of here. Maybe. I don't know. But I got to be skeptical. Okay, now here's cynicism. Cynicism is, not only am I not going to trust you, I'm not going to trust you. Not only am I not going to trust you, I've known him for every year of his life. He's my son. And I'm not going to trust him. Why? Because he's done some pretty wrong things at times. See, sir, the cynic has taken skepticism too far. Because the cynic is saying, I could never trust him because of X, Y, and Z that he's done wrong. And you see, sir, that's why cynics are going to be very lonely people. Because you can't trust anybody. Because you know that people have ripped you off at times. So why would you ever trust them? I'll tell you why. Because there's also evidence that people are not going to rip you off. And you better learn to trust those people. Otherwise, you're going to be a very lonely, isolated person. Yes, ma'am.
So I just wanted to pose a few ideas, and it was more just, I guess, for commentary, if that's acceptable. But essentially, I was a devout Christian for some part of my life. I was atheist, and now I am a part of a faith that I will not disclose at this moment.
You bet.
So essentially, I have studied quite a bit of philosophy. I've read quite a bit of philosophy, and I do have respect for the different world religions, even if I'm not a part of them.
Right.
But the idea about atheism that I feel was unfairly represented was the fact that they don't necessarily have a faith in science, because the practice of science in and of itself provokes questioning what is around us and not relying too heavily on things. In order for something to become a theory, there must be postulations and axioms over what will be considered evidence, what will be considered concrete, what will be considered technical over data analysis over time. And so the problem is that science is the idea of evolving our ideas over time. So therefore, it's not blind faith in something. It's more like a principle of questioning what is around you. And that can go with atheism. It can go with whatever you want to mix it into, as long as your philosophical axioms align in some sort of way. So atheists don't necessarily always have to be any one sort of way, just like you're arguing that Christians don't have to just be one sort of way, or Buddhists or anything of that.
Scientific knowledge is a beautiful form of knowledge, but it's very limited. It is limited to the repeatability of an experiment. If you're going to tell me that at Texas State something is true scientifically, if you cannot reproduce the experiment in London, England, in Calcutta, India, and get the same result, it is not science. Science is based on the repeatability of an experiment. And you better not just be able to do it at Texas State. You better be able to do it at UT, at the University of London, at the University of Calcutta. Science is based on a study of process, and it's based on the uniformity of nature.
It's also
That's
a
science.
system that allows for doubt, however, and so it allows for the build-up upon of different ideas and theories so that we can evolve our understanding over time. Mind you, even though I am not Christian, I understand more or less in some way where you're coming from, because you say that you respect science and you're also Christian.
Absolutely.
And that makes sense, because I believe in my own beliefs that are not Christian or atheist, but I also respect science heavily. So I'm just trying to understand better where another person is coming from.
You bet. Okay, I have a younger brother who's a research scientist. He transplants kidneys and livers at Duke University Hospital in North Carolina. You're right. He has a lot of theories about how to help the body not reject a new transplanted organ. But the majority of his theories, after they are tested, fail. So you see, those theories are not hard science. They are creative conjectures on my brother's point, who has a team of research scientists who he works with at Duke. When they can take a theory and repeat it over and over again, and it works, then they have science. So obviously, science requires great creativity. But when you're in the creativity stage, you better not make the mistake of saying, this is scientifically proven. Because it's not. It's a theory that my brother has, as he alters genes to try and help the body accept the new organ. So I'm just trying to clarify and define these words better.
It's been confirmed multiple times. A theory has to go under harsh peer review and criticism. I myself have written a scientific paper.
Good, beautiful. That's science. Now, history is different. History is not based on repeating an experiment in Calcutta, London, and San Marcos. Historical knowledge is based on the trustworthiness of eyewitness testimony. Somebody saw George Washington. Somebody saw Dr. Martin Luther King. Somebody saw Abraham Lincoln. Someone saw Joseph Stalin and Mao and Che Guevara. And they wrote down what they saw. And you study it here, and you have to pay money to study it in your history courses, in your history department. It also is a valid form of knowledge. But it's a form of knowledge that is radically different from scientific knowledge, which is based on the repeatability of an experiment. So, can I scientifically show you that Jesus is the truth? No. Can I historically give you evidence, not proof, evidence that Jesus Christ is the truth? Absolutely yes. What is that evidence? It's the historical record of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which are eyewitness accounts of how did Jesus teach, how did Jesus treat people, how did he die. They record, as he's nailed to a wooden crossbeam, he prays, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. But most importantly, 3 days after he dies, he rises from the dead, and Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15 that over a period of 40 days, he appears to over 500 people who see him risen from the dead.
Is there known forensic evidence of that sort of thing that you're aware of?
No, I do not trust the Shroud of Turin. I would never base my life on a Shroud of Turin. So no, I do not have...
What does that mean? I'm sorry, I'm not
The Shroud of Turin is a veil, a white linen that has a blood imprint of someone who suffered a horrible death. Okay, so no, I don't trust that, and no, I am not into... I can show you scientifically that Christ rose from the dead. I cannot scientifically show that. The same way, I cannot scientifically show you that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. I cannot scientifically show that. In fact, do you know that Lincoln's body was taken out of the grave twice? Because there was so much concern about what had really happened and some hanky-panky going on. And was it really his body? So there are difficult questions. That's why we got to be skeptical, and we got to keep on looking for the evidence. And I have found that if you'll be honest intellectually, if you'll read the Gospels with an open mind, you will never find anybody who has more evidence to support their reliability than Jesus Christ. And just listen to your classmates. You will hear some of the most cockeyed, ridiculous, irrational thinking that justifies them not believing in Christ. It's scary. Let me give you one quick example.
Okay, I was just...
All right? Hey man, do you believe that Jesus rose from the dead? No, I don't, Cliff. Fine. Why? Well, Cliff, really, it's not that I have studied the Gospels, found the historical evidence lacking, and therefore I just can't believe that Jesus rose from the dead. I say, okay, why? Why have you concluded that Jesus didn't rise from the dead? Now, there have been a few people, not many, but a few, who've been real honest. And they've said to me, because, Cliff, I know that if Jesus rose from the dead, I have to change my lifestyle, particularly sexually. I have to change my lifestyle, and I don't want to do that. That's scary. That is really intellectually dishonest, and it's totally scary. And yet I appreciate those who are honest enough with me to say that. Stuart, what do you think?
On atheism still? I love the atheism question because I agree in terms of their scientism. I know a lot of atheists who would just say I buy into scientism, which is everything is science. The only way you find truth is through science. So that's hard scientism. Soft scientism would be you can find truth mainly through science. Then there are atheists who are humanists. They would say, no, we're just humanists. Then there are atheists who are different politically, in terms of political regimes. Then there are atheists who are different sects of Buddhism. So there's many different forms of atheism. My question oftentimes to an atheist is, do you believe that your life has a deep sense of meaning? Do you believe that your life really matters? If so, why or why not?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I'm not an atheist.
Oh, you're not an atheist. Your main point on atheism was that...
I was just saying that I felt as though the narrative that was being told about atheists was unfair and misrepresentational because, as you just said, there are many different types of atheists. There are many different types of atheists with different beliefs. And a majority of atheists that I've met and come across and seen different arguments from, because I myself value critical thinking, I have gone through looking at atheism in various different religions.
Sure, but so does all of...
To try...
Kepler, Newton, Galileo, on and on and on. All of the starters of modern day science were
apologize,
Christians.
but I was answering your question.
So let me just insert small points because you were reiterating, and you were reiterating because I asked the question. I realized, but let me just
get out what I am saying.
Okay, let's
finish my conclusion.
Okay, so
I can wrap it up for you.
Well, I had asked a question. You didn't answer that first one.
I was trying to answer.
Okay, so you believe your life has tremendous meaning and purpose, that it matters?
Yes, but I can't answer that through the lens of an atheist because I am not atheist nor am I Christian.
So why do you believe it? That your life really matters?
I will not disclose those sorts of things. I believe personally and culturally that religion is a personal matter to be discussed. I'm simply posing and defending that which I feel is misrepresented.
And I would just say what you misrepresented, which I totally get. I actually agree with you in terms of the misrepresentation of it. Religion, I would be a total fool to be out here trying to take the side of religion over science. I take science over religion 10 times out of 10 every single day. I'd be out here. So we're not arguing. See, oftentimes we were just at University of Texas 2 weeks ago. And I had to lay this out pretty clearly for students eventually. And they started to get it. But it's so ingrained in college students and really people of any age that it's kind of scary. People think that we're coming out here and that Christians or Buddhists or other people are just debating religion. No, we're not just debating religion. I don't even know how you do that because religion fails over and over again. Religion oftentimes has a lot to do with different forms of fake science, different forms of, again, back to the original question of lightning is somehow judging us. Stupidity. Religion equates stupidity. Jesus Christ, as a historical figure, what he came to do, and whether he lived, whether his claims were real, whether his character was just and all good, and then actually whether he rose from the dead or not, that's an entirely different question from just a man-made religion. Do you see that? Do you see the difference between the two?
I never said that I didn't see that.
No, I'm clarifying this. I'm clarifying this generally, but you made the comment where you were bifurcating between religion and science, and I'm saying we're not doing that out here.
I wasn't doing that, actually. I apologize if I misspoke, but I don't believe I ever made that point.
Okay. It sounded like that. So then I apologize for getting that wrong. Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm a Christian, so I agree with literally everything that you're saying. And I believe that, life has no meaning without God, because, how could we find meaning in ourselves if man is flawed? We're born with a sinful nature, so we can't create morality. Jesus was perfect, so, of course he can create morality, because he's, the uppermost being, so, if we create our own, rules, it wouldn't make sense, because, one day we could say it's okay to, murder, and then the next day we can say it's not okay, humans, we fluctuate too much. We're not consistent. The Bible is, completely correct. Every word in it is correct. So, if you follow the Bible, that's, there's, no law higher than that. So, it doesn't make sense for humans to create our own law, when God already made a perfect law. So.
I have a response for you.
Yeah.
So, do you believe that morality is commanded by God or admired by Him?
I think it's commanded.
Okay.
God gave us 10 commandments that we should live by. Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, keep the Sabbath holy. So, if we create our own rules, that doesn't make sense, because, we sin. Jesus never...
That was never an option. Creating our own rules was never an option. The two options were You answered my question. Commanded by him or admired by him. So if
Use a Fro dilemma. Is that where you're going?
that's exactly where I'm going.
Yeah. Well, let's just go. You guys were in the back. Let's go you first and then you second. Yeah.
So, can you demonstrate why you would say that religion and science conflict? And do they conflict inherently?
Great question. So I would say, and I'm disagreeing with some of my friends right now,
Okay.
the young Earth hypothesis and
Okay.
creationism. If I'm going to state out here that I am certain the Earth is only 6,000 years old, I would say that's conflicting with most of science. So that would be one example. There's many examples. That would be one.
Okay.
Sir, my point is,
Yeah.
there is no conflict between faith in Christ and hard science. Hard science is a study of process. Faith in Christ has nothing to do with the study of process. Good is good, not because there is a value of good that exists before God. Nothing exists before God. God is eternal. Good is good because God's character is good, and throughout eternity, God's character defines good.
I'd agree with you on your first point, but in application to religion at large.
Don't believe in religion. Religion has been used to justify the Crusades, slavery, the Inquisition, the Salem witch trials. I think you'd be an idiot to believe in religion.
People can mess up at anything.
I've been here for
Yes, but Jesus Christ is different. Jesus Christ didn't have a racist bone in his body. Jesus Christ didn't attack science. Jesus Christ did not promote American nationalism. And Jesus definitely attacked the idea of white supremacy.
No, absolutely.
In his first sermon in Luke chapter 4,
Yeah.
he tells a synagogue packed with Jews, hey, guess what, guys? God loves Gentiles just as much as he does Jews.
Yeah.
And they're so irate because of their racist attitudes, they want to throw him off a cliff to his death. So for anybody to say, I'm a follower of Christ and white supremacy is true, they are lying through their teeth.
No, absolutely. I would totally not say that's a good representation of Christianity
Thank
anyway.
you.
But I don't think that that's. I think a lot of people see stuff like that
Right.
and then think, oh, religion can't be good, religion bad, and just totally disown it
Right.
completely. I don't think that's really fair to religion.
Good.
Because people wouldn't do that. Like, you see, there's Nazism, all sorts of stuff in politics, but people aren't doing the same thing in politics in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I am, but most people aren't.
Yeah.
So basically, what I'm saying is, I challenge the idea that religion has to be this anti-scientific
It's
thing
not.
inherently, and it's
It's
not.
not, doesn't have to be.
Regardless of which religion we're talking.
Exactly.
I'm pagan, so.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
But I've done a lot of studying of Christianity, of Judaism, not so much of Islam, but Islam to some extent. Judaism, Christianity, I've studied a lot
Well,
more.
why haven't you trusted Christ?
Give
me your reasons, your evidence that
Okay.
Christ is not reliable.
I've had spiritual. So first of all, I'm going to go on the more positive side rather than negative side because I don't really want to tear.
It's
I want
okay.
to focus on tearing anybody down.
I respect you, but
Yeah.
you tell me anything that's on your heart, okay?
So personally, I've had personal spiritual experiences that
Good.
line up with my current religion far better than anything else.
How do you know those spiritual experiences are coming from the light and not the dark
Um,
side?
That's a good question. Because it lines up with the morality that I have always believed in. That even better than my Christian experiences or my Christian beliefs in the past. So it lines up even better, and all the conflicts that I did have with Christianity aren't there.
Like what? What are you talking about?
So, one of the reasons why I had issues with Christianity at first was with the Old Testament. There are a lot of things in the Old Testament that I felt were very immoral from my standards.
Same here.
Yeah.
So what's your problem?
So my problem is, I found out at a certain point that the way that it was represented in the Old Testament is not how people who support the Old Testament would view those things, and it's misrepresented by Christian mistranslations. And I also, to solve my initial issues, right, with the Old Testament,
Yeah.
I studied the New Testament.
Yes.
And that broke my faith in Christianity completely because I felt that the New Testament was basing its authority entirely on the Old Testament, and I did not feel like it connected at all.
Oh, sir, come on.
I know that seems, like I said, I don't really want to focus on tearing anybody down.
No, it's all right.
Yeah.
You got to tell me what you really believe, and I
Yeah.
respect that, okay?
Yeah.
But sir, Jesus Christ was a Jew,
Yes.
but he lived his own life. Jesus Christ is not Moses. Jesus Christ is not Joshua. Jesus Christ is not Isaiah. So the question is Jesus reliable or is he not? The question is not, what do I think of the Old Testament?
Yeah.
The question is Jesus a liar, a fraud? And if he is, you better reject him. Or is Jesus the truth? And if he is, you better put your faith in him.
If I have to pick one of those two sides, which
Yeah.
I don't really want to.
It's okay.
I think Jesus as the historical figure,
Yes.
I would not trust.
Why?
I think a lot of his rhetoric is unnecessary, inflammatory, and in the context of that culture, I think he was stirring the pot for no reason.
Okay. As I read the Gospels,
Yeah.
you're right. I agree with you. Jesus definitely stirred the pot. He looks people straight in the face and he says, "You've heard that it was said, do not murder. But I tell you that if you hate someone, you're guilty of murder." Jesus says, "You've heard that it was said, do not commit adultery. But I tell you, man, that if you lust after a woman, you've committed adultery with her in your heart."
Yes.
He's stirring the pot. No question.
Well, I think a lot of
But
that
guess
stuff,
what?
Yeah.
It's a pot that needs to be stirred, sir.
Sure, but
Right?
Sure, but a lot of that stuff would have been backed up by the Old Testament, and the Pharisees would have said that too. I don't really want to be arguing for Judaism.
You're headed in that direction.
He was after the Pharisees his entire. There was no single group that he
Yeah.
was attacking more than the Pharisees
I
and what
know.
they talked about. So I don't see how that's true.
That's because I don't know if. Let me put it this way: it's not really my. I just. How can I really put this? To be perfectly honest,
Yes.
I've talked to a lot of people who are Jewish, right?
Right.
Before that, there were a lot of red flags reading the New Testament. The main things is that a lot of the Gospels,
Yeah.
particularly the Gospel of Matthew, that I actually like the Gospel of John better than a lot of them.
Okay.
But the Gospel of Matthew was the main one that
Right.
really got me in the first place.
How did he get you?
So if you look at the first part, right, and you look at the book of Emmanuel, and you have to forgive me, I am terrible at quoting like scripture numbers.
It's okay, don't worry.
So
Just tell me what you didn't like about the Gospel of Matthew.
so the first part, it says, "And you shall call his name Emmanuel," and it quotes the Old Testament, right? I went back and I read that part of the book of Isaiah, and I read it in full context. And I looked at the words, and I looked at all of that. And from my understanding, and at least the understanding of a lot of the rabbis who studied it as well, it wasn't even meant to refer to the Messiah. So it feels to me that that's being misrepresented, just for the purpose of saying, well, look, this is the person who's been told, prophesied about in the whole Old Testament. Now, there's also things that try to connect Jesus to the Old Testament that I think that I would be like, you know what, that's fair, that's fine. I don't necessarily think that's like the original intent in the Old Testament, but I would totally be okay with that. Like in also in the Gospel of Matthew, when Jesus is coming out of Egypt, it quotes part of Genesis, but in Greek, ex Egypto vi mo, out of Egypt I've called out my son, and it says that in Genesis in the context of the Exodus, I believe. So they're connecting those two, even though that's not the original intent of the Genesis, and I don't think it was a prophecy, but it's a metaphorical or a symbolic link, and I think that stuff's fine. But stuff like the Emmanuel thing, I feel like it's being deliberately facetious on the part of the author of Matthew. That's why that's one of the reasons that why I started being skeptical. And believe me, I tried really hard to try to make a lot of the things that were contradictory make sense. I really dived into the Greek, I dived into the Old
Good
into
for
the
you.
Hebrew. I
Good
did
for
my
you.
best to try to make it work.
Yep.
It was not I went there I believe the truth is self-evident. So I went there trying to just like, okay, what's the truth? Just trying to look at open-minded, skeptical, but not unnecessarily unfair. And I felt that it was not fair.
Okay.
My experiences with my current religion, Celtic paganism, have been very much different direction. I have given it the same chance I gave Christianity, and I've not been disappointed too much so far.
All right. So, to be honest, the deity of Christ is not based on a quote from the Old Testament about Emmanuel. Christ himself takes the name Yahweh, Jehovah, in John 8:58, and he says, "Before Abraham was born, I am."
Yes, okay.
And the Jews understand very clearly what he's
That means,
claiming.
yes,
and they try and kill him for
Okay.
blasphemy.
Yes, okay.
So I don't know why you're getting so hung up on Matthew using a vague passage out of the Old Testament, and you're saying he's being dishonest. He's not being dishonest. He's taking a statement, a phrase in the Old Testament, applying it to Christ, and obviously my Jewish friends don't think that that is the meaning of that Old Testament text.
Yeah.
Obviously they don't. But Matthew, who was a Jew, Matthew was not a Gentile, he is a Jew, is saying, all right, Jesus fulfilled this Old Testament prophecy
Yes.
in this way.
It's
So I don't think you have a legitimate complaint here. You got a first century Jew named Matthew
Yeah.
taking some phrases out of the Old Testament, applying them to Christ in a way that's difficult,
Okay.
in a way that there's plenty of room for disagreement.
Uh-huh.
But that is not sufficient reason to say that Jesus is not God, because Jesus' deity is not based on any Old Testament prophecy. It's based on his claims, like John 8:58, like John 10:30, like when he offers forgiveness to a guy he's never seen, who's paralytic, lying on a mat, who's just been lowered through the ceiling in Mark
Okay.
chapter 2. Like when Thomas, when he sees the risen Christ, he bows and says, "My Lord and my God." And
Yeah.
Jesus says, "Thomas, you believe because you've seen. But blessed are those who will believe even though they've not seen." See, that's what the deity of Christ is based on. It's not based on a Jewish guy named Matthew pulling a verse out of the Old Testament of Emmanuel and saying, "Okay, Jesus is Emmanuel."
So Jesus is a guy who lived in the, so not just a guy. So don't
Yeah.
don't misrepresent me. I don't
No,
mean
keep
that.
going. You're fine.
So Jesus existed in a specific date, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Jesus is the eternal God.
Yes, sir.
Where was he before that?
Good question. He was in another dimension called heaven, called presence with his Father.
Okay.
Different dimension.
Did humans have contact with him before then?
Spiritually, yes. Physically, no.
Is there any were there any religions that represented that connection at all?
Yes, all religion is an attempt, hopefully, if they're sincere,
Okay.
to connect with God. So yes, there's
Okay.
spirituality in almost every major world religion. It's one of the
So-
reasons I believe there's a God. Because if you study anthropology, guys, you'll notice that every culture around the world has some type of religion. We as human beings are incurably religious.
Read the book of Ezekiel.
Okay.
Read the book of Jeremiah. Read the entire book of Isaiah.
Yes.
Isaiah 9, 53, 51.
Yes.
There's even parts in Proverbs, all predicting that this Messiah figure would come
Yes.
in human form.
Right.
Emmanuel, what does Emmanuel mean?
God with us.
God with us.
Yes.
Makes a lot of sense that Matthew, as a Jew, would write in such a way where there are toledotes, where there are ways that it lends credibility to the Gospel of Matthew, writing as a Jew again, showing that this Messiah figure is coming in human flesh. Because if you're going to argue from the Jewish perspective,
Yes.
you're going to have to try and make Jesus or this Messiah figure plural in terms of Jerusalem or the coming of the age and the
Okay.
brokenness there.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us for these few minutes. We'd like to personally invite you Sunday mornings to St. Paul's Episcopal Church, located in Darien at 9 a.m., or to Grace Farms at 10 a.m. in New Canaan, Connecticut. Check us out more online at www.gracecommunity.info to learn more.